Hi, my name is Konstantin Baum. I'm a master of wine, and today we're going to do something really special. I've prepared 4 different dishes and we have 8 different wines. So we are going to search for the best food and wine match. And I'm going to teach you everything you need to know in order to make sure that your next special dinner is going to be even more special. So let's go. So we're starting off with one of the Christmas classics, Poultry. I prepared a chicken here, but in many homes people will prepare a turkey for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. Goose and duck is also served in many homes for special celebrations. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the dynamics here, what works with poultry and what doesn't work. So there's this old logic saying that white wines should be served with white meats and red wines should be served with red meats, but that's not always true. I think you can get more creative if the chicken or the turkey has been prepared in an oven or fried in a pan, because that adds flavor to the meat, and then you can actually go for a lighter red wine or a more concentrated white wine. Leon picked 2 wines that will compete in the first round. I have a 2018 Pats and Horse Sonoma Coast Chardonnay from California here, and I have the 2019 Barda from Bodega Chacra in Argentina, from Patagonia. And I think both wines could work, but let's find out. So while you could go for a really light wine, I think actually the crispy crust of this chicken will work better with a more concentrated, slightly richer Chardonnay. And this one here is from California, a state that is known to produce more rich and round wines. And it is actually fermented in barriques. So I think roughly a quarter of the barriques were new. This will add flavor to the wine and make it more versatile when it comes to more rich and hearty dishes. So I'm gonna pull this cork and then that one, and then I really want to taste this. I'm hungry. So the Barda is a Pinot Noir from Patagonia in Argentina, a region that produces lighter, fresher wines. And Pinot Noir is a grape variety that is known for producing slightly lighter and fresher wines as well. On top of that, this is aged in 50% concrete tanks, so they don't impart any flavor and will keep the wines more fresh and fruity. Only the other half is aged in barriques. So this should be a good match, but I'll have to try it first. So let's see whether I can do my patented double pour. Wow. Are you impressed? So the Pats and Hall is really fruit driven and concentrated. There's orange flavor coming through. There's also some brioche or bread character coming through, not bread as in Brettanomyces, but bread as in baked goods. And you can feel the oak flavor coming through, but it's not just oak. I mean, there's a good balance between fruit and oak. On the palate, it's actually rich and concentrated, but there's great freshness there. So really, the finish is really lively. So that is a good thing when it comes to pairing it with food, because acidity cuts through fat and protein, and yeah, it just makes the whole experience more enjoyable and better. So the Barda is actually quite fruit driven. It smells of strawberries and raspberries. There's not much oak coming through, but there are some spice notes floating in that glass. Well, there's actually a little bit of black tea character coming through, which I like. On the palate, it's juicy, fresh. There's not a lot of tannins, which is good because they will not necessarily be absorbed by this chicken. And yeah, overall, I can see both of them work. But now, let's dig in. Nice. The Chardonnay actually works really well. It doesn't overpower the meat. It's there. It adds a little bit of flavor, but it's actually kind of similar in flavor. So I sometimes prefer it when the wine adds a little bit of an additional dimension, basically, another fruit or flavor compound that isn't in the food. This is more really streamlined, very harmonious. It definitely works, but it might be a little bit boring. So I actually think the Barda is really exciting with this dish. It adds flavor. It also cuts through the meat. The acidity is fresh enough, but it doesn't overpower the chicken. There's a good balance here, but there's just a little bit more going on here. So the fruit flavor just gives the whole meal another dimension, and I really like that. By the way, I only focus on the main ingredient, the main product on the plate. Obviously, you'll have sauces and other things on the table when you serve your food at the special dinner. But I think just with the chicken, this would actually be my pick, the Pinot Noir. If you're eating a goose or a duck, you can actually go for something even more flavorful. Pinot works fine, but a more concentrated, rich Pinot that has seen maybe a little bit more oak aging and that has more concentrated tannins works perfect with duck and goose. And for those dishes, the Chardonnay might just be too light. So if you have darker colored poultry, it's definitely worth opening a bottle of red. I'm well aware of the fact that tangible goods can increase in value, as quite a few bottles from my collection were a lot cheaper when I bought them. And this brings me to Masterworks, a sponsor on this channel. 2022 was a financially challenging year, even for traditional investments like stocks and bonds. They've lost a combined 36 trillion US dollars. That's roughly the GDP of the US, China and Japan combined. And now 91% of US CEOs think that there will be a recession in the next 12 months. That's why I diversified my portfolio into wine, real estate, and also art. I've talked about Masterworks a few times now, and I, for example, purchased shares in a Picasso painting through their platform. They have more than 600,000 members, and all of their offerings are qualified with the SEC. I've linked up the SEC filings in the description below this video if you want to find out more. Art sales have been soaring as other investments continue to suffer. In fact, some of you who have signed up previously have seen 2 paintings sell in the recent past. Last month it was a Pierre Soulages work for a 13.9% net return. The video before that I talked about a Mitchell that sold for 17.8% net. Prior to that, a condo for 21.5% and a Gilliam for 33%. Of course, investments can go up and down, and this is not financial advice. I'm just talking about already sold paintings. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description for special access. And now let's get back to the wines. Next up, we have beef. This could be your beef casserole that you eat over Christmas or when you invite a bigger party of people. It's easy to prepare and it usually tastes delicious. This is actually ox cheeks, so they should be nice now. I stewed them for a long time and they should be really tender and soft. With that, Leon prepared 2 wines. One is the 2018 Clos Manu from the Médoc in Bordeaux. It's a Merlot-based wine with lots of concentration and richness and tannins. And the other one is the 2019 Reineke Syrah from Stellenbosch in South Africa. Another grape variety that goes really well with meaty dishes. So yeah, let's see. So the Clos Manu is a blend of 58% Merlot, 30% Cabernet Sauvignon, 7% Cabernet Franc, and the rest is Petit Verdot. And they use weird corks. Well, this is one of the special plastic corks that I talked about before on this channel. Frank Cornelissen also used them in Sicily. Yeah, I haven't really made up my mind about them, but they can look cool. This one looks pretty cool. The Reineke Syrah is organic and they actually do some whole bunch, which is pretty common with Syrah. It just adds a little bit more spice and a little bit more herbaceousness to the wine, which can be really nice. This is aged for over a year in barrels and then in stainless steel, and then it's also aged in a bottle before being released. Syrah is one of those grape varieties I think that are still underestimated, even though it's responsible for so many great wines. Syrah can be just beautiful, and I'm looking forward to tasting this one. So Bordeaux blends and Syrah are often paired with meat dishes. They both have intense tannins, intense acidity in most cases, a lot of concentration, a lot of fruit flavor, and that pairs really well with concentrated, rich meat dishes, from medium fried fillets to braised beef like this one. They just cut through all of the intensity of the food and make the food more digestible. And that's what it's all about. Wine and food matching is not just about flavor or texture, but it's also about just making the whole experience a little easier on the stomach. So in this case, I'm going to add a little bit of sauce just because I like it. So the Reineke is actually surprisingly restrained. I mean, there's really fine fruit flavors. There's a little bit of cranberry coming through, a little bit of blackberry flavors too. There's not a lot of oak, there's not a lot of spice that you often also get from Syrah. On the palate though, there's quite a lot going on. There's intense tannins, intense acidity, a little bit of black olive tapenade coming through as well. So I think this wine is either too young or you have to pair it with something else, a meat dish, in order to make it a little bit more mellow and round. The Clos Manu is quite a bit more concentrated and rich. It also has intense tannins, not as grippy as the Syrah, but they are there. There's more oak flavor coming through here, more body, more muscle. But all that doesn't really matter because I want to find the perfect match, and I can only find it if I taste the wines with food. So let's do this. Look at this meat. It's just beautiful. It falls apart as it has been braised for, I think it's like 15 hours. A long time. Man. Okay, the Syrah from Reinecke is quite delicate and elegant. And I think flavor-wise, the meat is actually a bit too concentrated, a little bit too present. On the palate, it is quite beautiful. The tannins mellow out a little bit. The acidity cuts through the meat, but I think the whole dish is just a bit too rich for this wine. Let's see whether the Bordeaux works better. So the second pairing, the Bordeaux, actually does a better job. You know, it's like two instruments playing together. If one is way too loud and the other one is just not loud enough, it just doesn't work. And in this case, both are kind of, on the same level. And the tannins, actually the intense tannins that are still present in this wine, get mellowed out by the meat as well. Tannins react with protein. If you have meat in your mouth, they won't react as much with your tongue and your palate. Instead, they will react with the meat that is kind of being chewed up in your mouth. And that just makes the meat taste a little bit better and makes the wine taste rounder. On top of that, because of the smokiness of the meat, the wine actually seems less oaky, which is also very common. Your nose gets used to flavors quite quickly. And if there's another product in front of you that also smells the same way, in this case, smoky, the wine just seems a little bit less smoky and more fruit driven. So the Clos Manu from Bordeaux takes the second round. Really nice match. Not to say that this wine wasn't good, but it just couldn't quite keep up with this rich and concentrated dish. So next up, we have a traditional German Christmas dish, which I never eat on Christmas Day, but it's pretty common. It's sausages and potato salad. And with that, Leon picked two interesting white wines. We have the Pinot Bianco 2021 from Alois Lageda in Alto Adige, northern Italy. And we have the 2021 Ansgar Klüserath Riesling from the Mosel, and it's fine herb, so it's off dry. I think I know what he did here. I think the acidity and the sweetness of this wine should actually pair quite well with the potato salad that is also made with vinegar, just to buffer off the acidity of the salad. And this is just a light wine that doesn't overpower the dish. We don't have a lot of flavor here. It's all quite tuned down. So I think both of them could work, but let's find out. The Lageda winery has been in the family for 5 generations, and apparently every male heir is called Alois. So that might be a little bit confusing on Christmas Day over dinner. But anyways, this is their Pinot Bianco. It's fermented in stainless steel, aged on the lees to give the wine a little bit more creaminess and concentration, and then bottled. So it should be quite straightforward, direct, delicate, and interesting. Ansgar Klüserath's history goes back even longer. The winery was founded in 1670, so a long time ago. And they are really focused on producing great Rieslings. The grapes here were hand harvested. The wine was fermented spontaneously, and it was aged in foeders, so in large oak vessels that shouldn't really give the wine any oak flavor, but just give them a little bit of oxygen during maturation. This one is labeled fine herb, which means in most cases that the wine is off dry and usually between 15 and 25 grams of residual sugar. But the term is not legally defined, and the winery can basically decide what fine herb means to them. So this will be a bit of an uneven pairing. One wine is dry, the other one off dry. So I'm going to start with the dry Pinot Bianco and then work my way to the Riesling. The Pinot Bianco is really delicate. It smells of lemon zest, green apple, and a little bit of lees. So this yeasty character. On the palate, it's quite light, fresh, vibrant, and it has a bit of a bitter finish, which is actually quite animating, quite nice. A little bit like tonic water. The Riesling has a very characteristic Mosel Riesling note. It's a little bit wild. It's difficult to put into words. Many people refer to it as the Schiefer character, the character of the slate stones where those vines grow. I beg to differ a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the whole minerality topic, but this is quite precise, a little bit funky, a little bit wild. There are flavors of peaches coming through. And on the palate, it's actually really juicy, fresh. The acidity cuts through the sweetness. This doesn't feel sweet. It just feels fruit driven. So if you would pair this dish with one of the red wines that I had earlier, the dish would basically disappear under a big wave of red wine. And you really want to make sure if you pair food and wine that both the food and the wine get to shine. Okay, I'm not really sure whether I have to try the Riesling with this meal because the Pinot Bianco is just perfect with this dish. The wine gives the dish a little bit of freshness, a little bit of liveliness. The dish gives the wine a little bit of roundness. Both don't outshine each other. The combination is just so much better than the sum of both parts. So this is really, really good. But I still got to try the Riesling. So let's give him a chance, okay? Okay, this is also good, but it's just not as good. I think the wine, due to its residual sugar, actually covers up the meal a little bit. It works, but it's just not as good as the first match. So the third round goes to Pinot Bianco from Alto Adige. Alois Lageda, great producer, and this is just a beautiful match. And this is also a great lesson. When people think of food and wine matching, they often think of fancy Michelin-starred restaurants, but it's not about that at all. A simple dish and a fairly simple wine can be just as perfect together as this super expensive bottle of wine and this amazing Michelin-starred dish. It's all about the match. The last course, the last round has to be desserts. Matching great sweet wines with sweet dishes can be just beautiful. The most important thing here to bear in mind is that the wine always has to be sweeter than the dessert because otherwise the wine tastes really bad. So here we have two great sweet wines. We have the 2017 Nieport LBV late bottle vintage port from Portugal, and the 2016 Kracher Trockenbeerenauslese Grand Cuvée from Austria. I'm ready for the sugar rush. Nieport is one of the most famous producers in the region. They are producing great wines, some really outstanding coletas, and the LBV is actually aged for 5 years in barrel before being bottled. It tends to be a little bit, more approachable than a vintage port and a little bit more concentrated and exciting and dense compared to a ruby port. This one has 90 grams of residual sugar, so not that much sweetness for a sweet wine, and it should be really good with chocolate. Score. So this is the second Alois in the tasting, Alois Kracher. The winery is really famous for sweet wines. They're based in Burgenland, a region that is more associated with rich, concentrated red wines from Austria. But this is a specialist in sweet wines. This wine is a cuvée of 70% of Chardonnay and 30% of Welsch Riesling. The Welsch Riesling is aged in larger oak vessels, and the Chardonnay is actually aged in barriques. And, this is a Trockenbeerenauslese, so it's harvested at very high sugar levels, and the wine has more than 200 grams of residual sugar. Interestingly, the sweetness alone doesn't matter that much in a sweet wine. It's always a function of sweetness and acidity. So the way your mouth perceives the sweetness level of a wine really also depends on the acidity level. And this one has 7 grams of residual sugar, so it should be fairly balanced and fruity, even though it's really, really sweet. So when you look at these two wines, you can see a big difference in color. This is obviously a red wine and this is a white wine that is really golden in color. Well, this looks like a really concentrated red wine. The Kracher smells of passion fruit, dried apricots, little bit nutty as well, and quite intense and rich and, well, super concentrated. On the palate, it's very rich and round, lots of sweetness, good freshness, but it's actually quite a heavy sweetness there. So I'm not worried at all that this wine is not sweet enough for the dessert. And the Newport is corked. Man, that sucks. I was really looking forward to tasting this wine and I didn't expect it to be corked, but it's really, really badly corked. I'll still try. You know, I'll give it a chance. I don't have a second bottle, so, well, I'll hold my nose and try it. On the palate, it's actually quite nice. It's grippy. The tannins are very present. This is a very young port wine. It even tastes a little bit of chocolate, but there's also this cork flavor coming through, which obviously isn't very appealing. Oh, that's sad. So many good wines have been ruined by cork, but, well, I still like popping them. So regardless, let's try matching this dessert with one of those wines. The flavor, well, it obviously makes it less enjoyable for me, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't experiment with this wine even though it's corked. Man, I love chocolate. Oh, I mean, I have to hold my nose because the flavor is just awful. But if I just focus on the texture, it's actually a really good match. I mean, there's lots of chocolatiness here. The darkness of the fruit flavor also matches quite well with this very intense chocolate dessert. So not bad. Not bad at all. But now let's try the Kracher. The Trockenbeerenauslese actually doesn't work as well as the port. It just doesn't have the concentration and richness to cope with this much chocolate. So it gets overpowered by the tartlet. But I prepared something else. So this is a pineapple tartlet. And I don't think this will work with the port, but I could see this working really well with the Trockenbeerenauslese. Let's find out. Did I ever tell you that I love my job? I'm actually really happy that I bought this tartlet as well. The fruit flavor of the Trockenbeerenauslese works really well with the pineapple character. On top of that, this is just less sweet than the wine for sure. And the wine really explodes in the mouth because of this creaminess of the tartlet. It's just a really good match. The port, on the other hand, apart from being nasty and corked, doesn't work at all with this dish. It's just way too intense. The flavor just covers the pineapple flavor completely. And yeah, this is just no fun. So the last round goes to Kracher and Newport. I guess this should be beautiful if it's not corked with chocolate desserts, just because of the flavor profile and the intensity of the wine. While this is better with creamy desserts and fruit flavors. So two really good wines, well, apart from the cork. Okay, this was a lot of fun and I hope you now know which wines to pick for your next big dinner party or Christmas. My favorite food and wine matches of the day were this wine together with the sausages and potato salad. I'm not a big fan of sausages and potato salad, even though I'm German. And I don't think this is like a crazy outstanding wine, but this pairing was just beautiful. And the same is true for this wine together with the pineapple tartlet. They were just a perfect match, really, really good pairings. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And most importantly, stay thirsty. No, not this one. Cheers. Sorry.